I'm here, it's day 2 of Mobile World Congress, and I'm with Howard Watson from BT. Howard, nice to see you again.
Good to see you again. Great to be here.
It is good to be here. It's good to be at a physical event.
And the sun's shining.
Exactly, yes. So we're a couple of years into 5G rollout, and BT's been talking a bit more now about what comes next, this standalone evolution. I mean, why is that an important thing for BT, and I guess why should customers care about it as well?
Yeah, I mean, what does standalone enable? I mean, 5G, we've launched it with essentially enhanced broadband, which is one of the 3 apexes of the ITU triangle. The other 2, which is, ultra reliability and low latency, and then, massive volume of devices. Standalone really brings those 2 pieces to life. So what does it mean for customers? It really does mean that the explosion in devices can be handled on the network, and we can orchestrate them via the network. And of course, that low latency capability really brings edge to life as one of the great options for our customers.
Okay, and how challenging is it, I guess, to sort of move from non-standalone to standalone for an operator? What are the big sort of hurdles you need to get past?
I guess, the key hurdle is getting the 5G core in place, because obviously non-standalone is running off an enhanced 4G core. So we're right in the midst of that now. And the great thing, but also the hard thing about the sort of 5G core technologies is that they're absolutely cloud native. And so I think the whole industry, I would say, has found that a little bit harder than we thought, just in terms of standing up that cloud-native capability, on top of general-purpose compute. We're there now, and now it's about sort of rolling it out at scale, ensuring we've got enough nodes in place to then start moving customers across onto that 5G core. That then enables standalone.
And you say we're there now. I mean, does it sort of fundamentally change the relationship that you have with vendors that you've worked with before, and how you kind of deal with them and what you're buying from them?
I mean, it's certainly changed. We've got a much larger partnership we have with Ericsson through this, and we've worked really closely with them on the cloud-native capability, and in particular, we've built our network cloud underneath it, and that's brought some new partners in, a bigger role for Juniper, a role for Canonical, and some Cisco Compute underneath that, and a lot of Intel inside. So all that's been going well.
And I mean, one of the things I hear when I talk to people about standalone is this ability to sort of distribute your core more easily around the network. I mean, where are you up to in terms of thinking about that, and what could we see in terms of the number of nodes where we have sort of core network functions and IT applications hosted? Yeah,
and we think about that with 3 sort of separate types of functions. So there's, where's the core that's handling the data, where's the core that's handling the control planes, and where's the tooling? And ultimately, we see 12 nodes across the UK handling the data, probably 6 handling the control plane, and then just a couple of nodes with the tooling for, and that's tooling for continuous development, continuous integration, and pushing services out quickly onto the core.
I've heard people talk about potentially using lots more edge nodes in the future, depending on how the services market evolves. But do you get to a point when building more just becomes sort of uneconomical and you're not really getting enough of a latency benefit, I guess?
Yeah, and I think edge, sort of the journey to edge, the discussion started with latency. I actually think the UK is not that big. Yeah. So latency is not the same in the UK as it is in, say, the US. Yeah. So for latency benefits, you can probably get away with, sub 10 nodes, but it's about where do you put the compute, and where do you put the storage associated with the compute, and that's what will drive the need for edge. And I think as customers, I was talking yesterday about only 20% of enterprise workloads in public cloud. I think edge and network cloud and bringing the network capabilities there will see the next wave of enterprises putting their workloads into the cloud. And that requires compute quite close to customers.
Right. And is a substantial investment, this sort of move from NSA to it's very much sort of talked about as a software sort of job, but to kit out an edge site, I guess, and to do all that and have those in the UK. have enough of them? Is it an expensive process?
It helps that I've got 5,500 exchange buildings, and 1,000 of those are, FTTC, FTTP nodes with OpenReach equipment in, but also BT equipment in. So
very useful to have that fixed line heritage.
We've got the infrastructure, physical infrastructure, and this is about putting compute and storage into those locations. So yes, there's an investment, but it's not quite the same as the level of investment in 20,000 radio access nodes.
Yeah, you're not having to buy new property or anything like that.
No, exactly. We're not buying new property. I'd quite like to sell some property.
So we've seen, one of the themes just walking around the show is the Metaverse. It seems to be emblazoned on a few stands, and there's talk about how telcos fit into that picture, I guess. What does it mean as someone on the network side? Do you kind of look at the Metaverse with horror? What do I have to do?
It makes me think about, there's definitely more bandwidth. Right. That probably is lower latency, a good example of where lower latency will come to its own, because, for it to really work, and for it to really work with, wearables, VR headsets that you can wear for a long period of time, you've got to make it as real as possible, and that does depend on latency. I do think, interestingly, we talk about Metaverse as sort of a fun area for consumers. I actually think the sort of unified comms applications of it look quite interesting. I was looking at some of that yesterday, and how we hold meetings potentially in the Metaverse, I think looks quite interesting.
Yeah, and so, you're talking about the latency that you need to do these sorts of things. Is 5G sort of up to the job of doing that?
Yeah, absolutely.
It is?
Once we get to around 10 milliseconds, even 15 to 20 milliseconds latency is fine for this.
Okay. So any thoughts at the moment on 6G and whether we actually need 6G or what it might be?
It's right for us to be thinking about 6G towards the end of the decade. Yeah. And it's right that we're now starting to think about what standards need to be developed for that. I love the fact it's the same radio standard, and we're not going to be necessarily rolling out a new set of radio standards.
Right.
I think what really brings 6G to life is millimetre wave and high-scale densification of the network, and we don't have the workloads for that now in terms of consumer demand or enterprise demand, but I think that will come by the end of the decade. So we will be there.
Well, I've heard people talking about using terahertz spectrum even.
Yes, that won't go very far.
But you said the air interface would be the same as in 5G.
Yes,
you need to change
the new radio standard. So far, it's looking like that's the same.
Okay. So, anything else that you've seen at the show, Howard, that's really sort of grabbed your attention and stood out? What's the kind of... Is there a big theme this year for you? Or?
There's an Open RAN theme emerging, and it's good to see some of the PowerPoint becoming real. So that's here. Metaverse, as we've talked about, is starting to become everywhere. I think it's just great to actually see more people here than I expected.
I think the estimates of 50 or 60,000 are probably fairly accurate.
Yeah, I do as well.
Great. Well, good to catch up, Howard, and hope to see you again next year.
Yep, thank you.